A lot of people who aren't homeschooled will tell you that in order for your kids to be socialized, they need to go to a public school. But in this video, I want to challenge that. And I want to share 4 reasons why I think that public schools actually are not a great place to socialize our kids. Please hit like on this video and subscribe to the channel so that you'll get notified whenever a new video is released. Okay, so this idea that kids will be better socialized when they can go to a public school is a really common one. And it's a reason that a lot of people share for why they aren't homeschooling their kids or why they believe that homeschooling is a bad choice for kids. But I would disagree. And so in this video, I want to share 4 reasons why getting kids to be socialized in a public school might actually not be what's best for them. And I want to share just some thoughts about what you might consider doing instead. So here are the 4 biggest problems that homeschool families can avoid by not having their kids be socialized in the public schools. The first one is that schools often don't offer enough time for socialization. If you've ever spent any time at all in a public school classroom, then you'll know that public schools are focusing more and more on academics these days. There's so much pressure to get good scores on standardized tests, and schools are really having to work very hard to be able to accomplish that. The No Child Left Behind Act has really changed what public schools look like. So there's a lot less time for socialization in all the grades. And formal learning is starting much earlier. So for younger kids in particular, there's even less time for kids to spend in socialization with their friends. For a large part of their day, students in a public school are working independently, and they're told not to talk to their classmates. But because homeschooled kids aren't in a classroom, they can talk while they work without disrupting other kids in the class. And they might have the opportunity to spend some time doing group work with their siblings. So this isn't to say that public school kids never do group work or that homeschooled kids never spend time working alone. But when you are in charge of homeschooling your child, you can have a lot more say over how much time they spend socializing than you could if they were in a public school classroom where they were supposed to be focused on that work all the time. The second reason is that kids who are in public school generally only socialize with kids that are their age. In public schools, kids are divided into similar age classrooms. So all of the first graders are together and all of the third graders are together, and they're in that classroom with other kids that are basically within a year of their own age. So most of the socialization opportunities that kids get when they're in public school are coming from socializing with kids that are the same age as them. But the thing is that socialization is all about kids learning how to respond in different situations and how they should behave. And so how does this actually happen? Well, most teachers in public schools are really focused on teaching the academics. And so they are mostly going to be focusing on those school subjects and not as much on teaching kids how to behave. They do some of that. Some really great teachers do a great job of that, but you never know exactly what your child is going to get. So a lot of that learning how to behave actually comes from kids that are at the same age and maturity level as your child. So your child is learning how to behave from other kids that are their same age. And sometimes those might be good influences, and sometimes they might be bad influences. But in general, they are not learning from somebody who's older and wiser and really has those answers figured out. In addition, outside of public school, there are really almost no times in life where we're going to be socializing only with people of our own age. Real life situations almost always require us to work with people who are older than us and people who are younger than us. And so the ability to get along and relate with somebody who's older than you and somebody who's younger than you are really important skills that kids need to learn and develop. And those skills, unfortunately, are missing when kids are segregated into a classroom with only kids their same age. And so this means that kids that are homeschooled have a lot more opportunities to learn how to interact with people of a wide variety of ages, which is a really important life skill. Third, when you're sending kids to public school or a similar experience, you have to consider the culture that you're sending them into and whether or not they might be exposed to bad influences. And unfortunately, the culture of kids' environment in the public school is kind of outside of a parent's control. Kids will likely be exposed to things through conversations with others that we may not be comfortable with them knowing or understanding quite yet. And so homeschool socialization allows parents to have just a little bit more control over the kinds of influences that their kids are being exposed to and just the kinds of things that they're learning about. This isn't to say that we should shelter our kids and never teach them about challenging situations, but a lot of times just we might want to wait a few more years or to make sure that our child is at the appropriate maturity level to be able to understand the concepts that are being presented. And that's not always possible when your child is going to school every day. And then finally, in public schools and traditional schools, kids often have to deal with bullying. And for some kids, school can be a really negative social experience because of bullying and teasing and exclusion and other mean kinds of behavior that are really unfortunately rampant in a lot of public schools today. There are a lot of adults that can tell horror stories about what happened to them at school, and especially in their tween and teen years and like late elementary and middle school, and about how those situations have really negatively affected them as people and impacted their self-worth even into adulthood. And if that didn't happen to you, then chances are good you probably know somebody who had those kinds of experiences in middle school. And so instead of exposing our kids to that environment or taking the chance that that could be our child, homeschool parents have the opportunity to look for really intentional positive influences into the lives of our kids. So hopefully this was helpful in giving you something to think about why maybe public school isn't the best place to get some socialization for your child. Please hit like and subscribe to this video and share your thoughts in the comments.